The best part about G-Day is that it's over now. I think the big take home was that Faton Bauta certainly had a very good day, but I don't think it's going to be enough for him to hold on to the backup job in the end. I think he played great though. He went, and these stats, this is why I hate G-Day. He wound up 16 for 28 for 232 yards and an interception. He had a couple of rushing yards as well, 35 yards. Bryce Ramsey was bad for the day in terms of the percentages. He was 2 for 13 with an interception. He had a long of 46. Bauta had a long of 47. 2 touchdowns and an interception for Bauta. But I thought Bauta played as well as he could play, which is kind of the issue there. I tell you, man, first half I was sitting there going, boy, I don't know how these guys are going to score this coming up here. And then, you remember how I thought Jacob Part had an okay day too, by the way. And then you remember how they're missing virtually. This is sort of the lineup that they played against Vanderbilt, with the exception of Todd Gurley being out there. Jonathan Rumpf, I thought could have had a better day. I thought Ramsey hit him right in the hands one time, and could have been. Well, there were a lot of drops today, actually. But Hudson Mason, like I've been saying for a while, and I think everybody's been saying, 18 for 27. He'll be the starter in the fall. 241 yards, touchdown, no interceptions. All the backups had an interception. Todd Gurley looked fine. I would have been curious to see Bauta and Ramsey in there with the full plethora of receivers that will be back in the fall, with Justin Scott Wesley, Malcolm Mitchell, etc., all there at the same time. That would have been curious to me to see. But it is pretty evident that Hudson's going to want to go fast, and I think that's fine. And the other thing you got to remember is, Todd Gurley shouldn't be getting tired in the fall, because he should have at least 2 backups that will be able to help him out. Didn't see Trey Matthews play. This summer is an important summer for Trey Matthews. It's got to start going in the right direction. No more arrests, no more stupidity. It's time. It's time to get going, or you're going to kind of be irrelevant after a while. The backup D played okay. It wasn't, I thought the first defense played pretty well for what they were out there doing. I think Amarlo had an okay day. Yeah, he had 6 tackles. Corey Moore had 7. Leonard Floyd with 6 tackles. Tremel Terry with 4. I asked Rick during the press conference after the game, or the scrimmage, not really a game, if he, when he's watching things, does he look at it and say, this guy needs to do this better? Or does he think about what's not out there at the time and realize, what's coming? You got Sony Michel, you got Nick Chubb, you got Keith Marshall. They'll all be vying for running back spots. Brendan Douglas will be back there. It's hard for me to see him getting tons of snaps in the future. AJ Turman looked okay. It wasn't anything that's going to, I don't think, necessarily stop Todd Gurley from getting the ball. I thought Chris Conley was what Chris Conley was. He's like a 2 or a 3. They need their ones back. They need Justin. They need Malcolm Mitchell to stretch the field. Hudson Mason, I think my number one concern, I think if you want to find concerns about Georgia football, today is a great day to watch them play, because nothing looks great necessarily on spring day. But when you step back and you look at the statistics, Hudson didn't have an interception. I think for the most part Hudson played pretty well. And I thought what we saw today, which is the mid-range to close to line of scrimmage passing game, that's going to be what Georgia is this fall. It's going to be hurry up. Now, is it that way because they don't have their, speed guys? I think that's part of the problem. You can't really go downfield. Chris Conley's not going to be a killer receiver. Same thing with Michael Bennett. If you don't have, guys that can stretch the field and then they can go underneath and do these crossing routes, that's the problem. That's the issue. So you got to get those guys back, or the offense changes. Once you get those guys back, then you can have some serious scoring possibilities. So it's hard for me to judge Hudson. I think it's hard for everyone to judge Hudson right now. He doesn't have the explosion down the field. So I think if you saw what you saw today, if there that's going to be playing on the field on Saturdays in the fall, they're not going to be very good compared to what they have been in the recent past. But, I mean, you only get to play 11 guys on Saturdays in the fall. Out here, you got 22 guys on the field. You can figure out what's wrong all the time. Leonard Floyd, I thought, had an okay day, just thinking about it. I thought of Marlowe, Tim Kimbrough. Those linebackers look fine. The secondary is a problem. They're going to have to figure some things out. I mean, Josh Harvey-Clemens is gone. Trey Matthews didn't play at all today. The walk-on, Aaron Davis, he actually did play pretty well. I mean, I thought the ball Bryce Ramsey threw to the end zone was underthrown. It was just not a good ball. But if you're the corner, you need to make that play, and he did. So when the play is there to be made, you got to do it. And he did that, and that was good. Now, and you know, Shaq Wiggins is a good player. I am going to be watching how he moves forward in terms of maturity, because today I saw where, you know, he had a tough call go against him on a pass interference. I thought it was a little brutal. And you can't look at the official. You got to just play the next play. And Keelan Johnson immediately, who's the new GA, went over and just said, you know, forget it. Drop it. Do not talk to the officials. And then the other dynamic, on the first half I was on the Bobo side, and the second half I was on the Pruitt side. Pruitt's not going to scream at these guys right in front of them. He's not going to jump them. So, you know, at the beginning of Todd Grantham's tenure at Georgia, he was all over guys, and people loved that. After a while, that was a negative. Well, you know, today, Jeremy Pruitt was talking to them, saying, I'm going to be, I remember, I heard exactly what he was saying. He said, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to fight for you. And he was talking about just don't say anything to the officials, because it really isn't the place for the kids to constantly say something to the officials. Because if you had a pass interference called on you, that means the other team didn't score probably. Almost, you know, 90% of the time. That means you haven't let them score, which means you still have the chance to stop them immediately. You still have the chance to either force a field goal or get a turnover. And that is the sort of thing that the older guys, Sean Williams, etc., they got used to that. They had to fight to get their jobs. Trey Matthews, Shaq, Brendan Langley, they all kind of walked in and got their jobs. So that will be the interesting thing to me, is the maturity level of the secondary. Where is it going to be? Because I know, you know, through the grapevine, they're looking to replace some guys if they're not going to make plays. They're not going to be on the field. And, you know, that'd be a pretty embarrassing thing for some guys. And if you think it's you, it might be you. So it might be time to get going. That's going to be where this team goes. If today, if it was only about Hudson Mason, you know, then Georgia probably wins the East. If today is not about guys like Hudson Mason, then it didn't look so hot to me personally. I mean, I expected more from Bryce Ramsey. I expected that first pass to be what we saw the whole time, but I think you do have to be careful in spring games. You know, Aaron Murray looked like turd about 5 years ago, and he turned out to be one of the best quarterbacks Georgia's ever had. So you got to be careful with just taking what is essentially 6 or 7% of spring practice and saying this is what it is. I mean, Mark Richt talked about how he played better than Jim Kelly one day, and he thought he was going to be the number one, and as it turned out, Jim Kelly was Jim Kelly and Mark Richt was Mark Richt, and there's a pretty big difference in terms of being able to throw a football. So I think Ramsey and Bauta, this is good for the future development of Ramsey. I still think he's the backup, but he's going to have to fight to try to go get it. He can't play like he did today and really expect to get snaps in the fall, but you know, word is he hasn't. I mean, statistics don't lie. He hasn't played like that. I think if you're Bauta, you just, I mean, I thought he played great for what he is. He really fought and competed, and I think that's great for Ramsey to see. And I also think it's great for new guy quarterback whose name, Jacob Park, escaped me immediately. It's such a big deal until you sign, and then you're another 4 on the depth chart. So I thought Jacob Park has a live. I think the 2 young kids at quarterback have liver arms than the 2 older guys, and I think, I mean, it's pretty evident Ramsey has the strongest arm. But it's going to be, I mean, I think this team can win 10 games. I think it should probably win the East. It just can't, you know, it's hard for me to get past seeing some of the things I saw, and then you say, oh yeah, they're really good, because it didn't look great at times. But if it was about, again, if it was about Hudson, then, you know, I thought Hudson played pretty well. It didn't have a deep threat too much today for what I like. But that's me. I'm used to the Mike Bobo, hey, fake Todd Gurley and go deep to Malcolm Mitchell. Well, Malcolm Mitchell's not there, so I got to kind of check that whole thing. The biggest roar of the day, Ethan? Bubba Watson sinking an eagle. I don't know. I don't know if there are 46,000 people here today. Probably not. But this is such a huge place that maybe it was about half full, so that might be about right. But yeah, we'll be seeing you next on the recruiting trail, and then obviously SEC Media Days leading up to the 2014 season. Okay, Dean Legge, Dog Post, spring is almost done.